The NFL Combine is officially in the books, and with it came a major shakeup for some guys' draft stock. We saw players solidify themselves as first-round locks. Some guys raised a few question marks. And then we also had some speedsters with amazing 40 times. O-line and D-linemen showcased some elite athleticism, and a couple under-the-radar prospects making a name for themselves. Now, with all of this information in mind, it's time for my first post-combine mock draft of the season. Who's rising up the board, which teams are in position to land franchise-changing talent, and what surprises could come in store on draft night. I'll be breaking it all down here pick by pick. So thank you everyone for listening. This is First and 10. Like and subscribe if you're new, and let's get into it here. So the big move I have is the Giants trading with the Tennessee Titans up to number 1 to select Cam Ward here. I think that the Browns and potentially the Raiders, among a couple other teams, are all candidates to trade up. However, in this decision, I went ahead and just went with the Giants. I believe they have the greatest chance of doing this. They've been linked to Cam Ward a good amount here, so I went ahead and just chose the Giants to move up. I don't have any other trades throughout this mock draft. However, I think that a team moving up to select Cam Ward at number 1 is going to happen fairly certainly, in my opinion, so I wanted to go ahead and factor that in here, and this time I chose the Giants. Maybe in my next mock draft, I'll have a team like the Browns or the Raiders actually trade up to 1 here, and we'll just work off of that. But yeah, starting at number 1, of course, though, we've got Cam Ward to the New York Giants. There's still the potential that the Giants could target like Sam Darnold, but I think Darnold's the only realistic option left for them, and Joe Shane and Brian Dable are famously on the hot seat and need to win this year. I think that Cam Ward can potentially play well enough his rookie season to keep the Giants competitive and save their job. The Giants have some weapons around him. Their offensive line isn't terrible. Malik Neighbors looks like a franchise wide receiver, and Cam Ward is really the only clear top 5 worthy quarterback in this class. I don't see Shedeur Sanders as being worthy of a top 5 selection, and I believe the league is starting to come around on that based on what we heard at the Combine here. But Cam Ward is a fun player. He's got a great arm. He's a great improviser, as evident by that big-time throw percentage, but that's also going to come with some risks. I think I see a lot of similarities into how Sam Darnold played for the Minnesota Vikings this season between Cam Ward, and it'll be interesting to see here if the Giants are in fact the team that trades up to number 1. But moving on to number 2 here, we've got the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland, unfortunately, seems to be back in their Cleveland Browns ways. Dire situations with Deshaun Watson and then Myles Garrett now wanting out. I think that Travis Hunter is an option here for the Browns as well. I don't believe that they are going to go quarterback in this draft. I believe that Deshaun Watson's contract is just too crazy at this point, and there's not enough talent on the roster to support a rookie quarterback, especially given the class. I think that the Browns are going to go after some veteran guy in free agency, and it's possible they could address this in round 2, maybe a Jackson Dart, Tyler Shuck, potentially. I mean, Jalen Milroe even. But I think at number 2 here, you replace Myles Garrett or try your best to. However, Abdul Carter is as good of any top 3 edge rushing prospect as there is. A bit of a different player profile from Myles Garrett, but that 22.9% pass rush win rate, he is an elite pass rusher. Good speed rusher, great bend off the edge. He's got a great first step. I think he's absolutely worthy at being picked at number 2 here for the Cleveland Browns. Now, coming in at number 3, the Tennessee Titans, who have traded back with the New York Giants. I have the Titans selecting Travis Hunter. Given how the first 2 picks have gone here, you have to take the best player available. If I'm Tennessee, Travis Hunter, 2-way superstar out of Colorado. I think it is an easy selection here. Hunter is a generational talent. I mean, we have not seen a 2-way player at this magnitude really ever in the history of the NFL. I know a lot of people talk about Charles Woodson and Deion Sanders, but those were such minimal roles that they played on offense that there's nothing we can really compare this to. I mean, he is a fantastic corner, super sticky in man coverage, 39.9 passer rating when targeted there, 4 interceptions, and he had a pick 6. And then as a receiver, there's a lot of similarities to Stephon Diggs type of player. I don't think he's quite Stephon Diggs level as a wide receiver, but that's that kind of player comp for just a similar type player. And I think his touch amount somewhat caps at around 60 to 70 touches a season if you are going to play him full-time at corner. But regardless, he's an easy pick here. And I mean, beyond just his on-field ability, I think that kind of cultural franchise type of just iconic player, that level of star power and excitement is something Tennessee has not had since Chris Johnson, and they're looking to establish a new identity with Brian Callahan, and drafting a player with Travis Hunter's marketability and leadership could really just elevate this franchise on and off the field. But moving on to number 4, though, we've got the New England Patriots selecting Tet McMillan. With T. Higgins getting franchise tagged and the free agent market now looking very thin at wide receiver, I think this is their best shot to secure a real difference maker on the outside. McMillan brings size at 6'5". He's a natural sideline receiver. He shows great footwork and body control to kind of adjust to the sideline and make those tough catches. And he does play above the rim, wins contested battles, and gives you that red zone and third down threat that Drake May severely needs. He's a highlight reel player waiting to happen, and some of those abilities to make tight plays and coverages certainly going to make life easier for May. Now, he's not a polished route runner. His routes, frankly, can be a little sloppy, and he's going to have to tighten that up. There is certainly some risk when you're drafting him. However, I think given the situation the Patriots are in, they need to go ahead and go receiver here. Their receiving core has been very below average, and while they need to address offensive line in free agency, if they do, I think this is the pick here. Moving on to number 5, though, we've got the Jacksonville Jaguars, who I have selecting Mason Graham, D-tackle from Michigan here. This is more than just about adding an elite talent. This is about long-term planning too. Devon Hamilton and Eric Armstead are both set to hit free agency in 2026, and I don't think Jacksonville is going to want to wait until then to address this, especially given how the board has fallen and Mason Graham still being the talent level that he is. I think that this gives them potential to make their defensive line a real strength and bring back maybe the Saxonville era into the 2020s here. But Graham did measure in a little bit small at the combine. However, he plays much bigger than his size. He's a former wrestler, and it shows in his leverage. He's able to get under blockers, hold his ground, and shed really easily. His motor doesn't stop, and he's got that relentless hustle as a pass rusher. Adding him to Jacksonville's defensive line to pair with Josh Hines-Allen and Trayvon Walker can make this one of the scarier D-lines in the AFC for the next few years. But moving on to number 6 here, we've got the Oakland Raiders selecting running back Ashton Jeanty out of Boise State. While this may feel a little high for a running back, we know the type of talent Ashton Jeanty is, and with Pete Carroll coming in, the Raiders are going to be focused on building a foundation, and I think that's going to be through defense and the run game. Jeanty fits exactly what Carroll needs in that tone-setting back. Carroll has always built his teams around physicality, toughness, and leadership. Jeanty checks every box there. He runs hard, plays with relentless effort, and is the kind of player teammates rally around. He's not just a workhorse, but he's a culture guy, someone who helps establish that identity from day one. I mean, you hear him in the interviews. He just seems like a true professional. The Raiders need stability on offense too, and whether it's just getting red zone opportunities, catching the ball on screens, just fighting out for tough yards, he's a scheme fit and a leadership fit. And when you're trying to establish a winning culture, I think that this is the type of pick that makes sense for what Pete Carroll wants to build in Oakland. Now, at pick number 7, we've got the New York Jets, and I have them selecting Tyler Warren here. I feel so bad for the Jets and the Browns. It really feels like the NFL is just coming back to the mean on them. There was a couple of years there where we had some hope for both of those teams, Aaron Rodgers, Deshaun Watson, but eventually it all comes back down to earth for these franchises. I feel terrible for them. Jets are, again, kind of entering another limbo phase here with Aaron Rodgers leaving, and I have them taking Tyler Warren. Without a clear direction on offense, they just need stability. Warren is the last blue-chip player left in this class. Tyler Conklin's hitting free agency. Whoever on earth the Jets have throwing the football next season, Tyler Warren's going to help that. I think he's a really high floor player. You feel really good about him not being able to produce at a Brock Bowers level, but hopefully being able to come in and be a day one impact. And in this transition phase 2, you don't need to reach for a quarterback here. I'd imagine the Jets could target someone in the second or third rounds, but right here, I think Tyler Warren's the easy pick. But moving on to number 8, though, this is where we get our first real influence from the Combine, is I've got the Carolina Panthers taking Jahdae Barron here. He emerged as a standout defensive back, really excelling in the nickel corner role. And as that position has grown to such a high level of importance in the modern NFL, these guys are beginning to really be worth top 10 picks. And I mean, not just from a nickel perspective, Jahdae Barron can absolutely play outside corner if needed. But regardless, the Combine addressed any concerns we had about his deep speed, showing that he is clearly an NFL-capable athlete. His versatility, too, with that nickel and outside ability, I think pairing him with J.C. Horn gives the Panthers a really intriguing secondary now in a division that is still loaded with wide receiver talent. Well, actually, you know what? Not so much, not as much here, as Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf are seemingly out of Seattle. That's crazy. That still blows my mind. But regardless, that's neither here nor there. Let's go ahead and move on to the number 9 pick, where I've got the Saints selecting Shamar Stewart, another Combine stud here. Really raw, but Stewart's a prospect who turned heads at the Combine with his remarkable athleticism. Standing in at 6'5" and 267, a little lighter than what Texas A&M had him listed, I believe 6'6", 290, but he never really looks that. I mean, I think probably 6'5", 280 was what a lot of people realistically thought he was. Still 267, he's coming in here to specifically tear up the Combine. 4.59 40-yard dash, 40-inch vertical, 10'11" broad jump. A lot of similarities to Danielle Hunter, who was a third-round pick a while back for the Minnesota Vikings, but the type of player, the raw athletic traits with, frankly, no real college production, that's the similar type of guy that I can kind of see from Stewart. And given the Saints cap situation, I believe they're still $47.5 million over the cap currently. I think that getting a, more project player like Stewart, they can afford it. They've got they've got time to kill, frankly. Well, that might not be the best way of wording it, but they have time to afford a guy to develop here. So that's why I think this is an interesting fit for Shamar Stewart. It would have been more interesting if Dennis Allen was still the head coach. However, who do they have as defensive coordinator here? I forget who the Saints brought in. Let me look it up real quick. Let's see. Oh, God, that's right. Brandon Staley. Okay. We'll see, but I think, Saints are a couple years away from competing. You can draft a guy who's a couple years away from playing. It's fair. But let's go ahead and move on to number 10 here, where we've got Armand Membu, the offensive tackle out of Missouri. I guess he played more right tackle, but he's able to play both sides, in my opinion. He is impressive, man. He came in a little bit bigger than we actually thought. 6'4", and I believe 332. He was actually listed at 6'3", but he's 20 years old, so it's very possible he just grew an inch. But he is a physical freak. 31 reps on the bench, 4'9", 140, 34-inch vertical. He didn't allow a sack on the season, only 9 pressures allowed, a 2.2% pressure rate, which was, I believe, 5th or 6th in the class. Still very good. He's demonstrated a proficiency in some wide zone running schemes. He's really effective widening out, hooking, and displacing the front side defensive ends. And I think he fits the system that the Bears have really well. And while they do have some solid offensive linemen and actually made a couple of trades just recently here, I think that Membu is just the best player available right now. And you cannot have enough offensive linemen, as proven by the Eagles and the Ravens and all of those great front offices over the last decades. But nevertheless, Membu's skill set aligns with the Bears' offensive strategies, and his youth suggests that he's got even more room to grow and become an elite right tackle at the professional level. Let's move on here. So let's see. We have got Will Campbell going to the San Francisco 49ers at number 11 here. Will Campbell is a pretty highly decorated offensive lineman, having been a 3-time All-SEC selection and consensus All-American in 2024. While his arm length is certainly below average, I believe it was 32 and 5/8 inch. So he's probably going to move into guard here after the combine. And actually, he had a very solid combine, but I'm starting to lean towards the idea of him playing guard. I think his exceptional athleticism and technical proficiency make him a really versatile asset for the 49ers here. He's really good at recovering and adapting during play lines, and I just think he fits a lot of what Kyle Shanahan wants. Campbell isn't exactly the best fit in a wide zone offense considering right now. However, I think his versatility is going to allow him to fit in with Shanahan's system and develop in it over time here. I think he's a Kyle Shanahan type player, and I really like this fit here at number 11. But let's go ahead and move on here to number 12, where we've got the Cowboys selecting Will Johnson, the corner from Michigan. Johnson has kind of slid a little bit from where he's been for the majority of the season. There's been some concerns about his athleticism. However, he still has great size, standing in at 6'2" and weighing in at 194 pounds at the combine. I mean, when he was targeted, 16 catches allowed on 26 targets for 195 yards, 52.6 passer rating against him in the 6 games he did play this season. You know, I wonder if he could potentially move to safety. I don't know how he feels about that, but it's possible that safety could be his best position at the next level. And the Cowboys, in terms of being the fit here, their defensive backfield has faced some pretty severe injuries with Trevon Diggs and Deron Bland. I was reading there's some speculation that Diggs might not return until the second half of 2025. Deron Bland is in the final year of his rookie contract. Selecting Johnson here, I think, is going to address some immediate depth concerns and then also plan for the future a little bit. So, Will Johnson, number 12 to the Cowboys. At number 13, Miami Dolphins, I have them selecting Kelvin Banks Jr. from the University of Texas, offensive tackle. Kelvin Banks Jr. has established himself as a cornerstone of the of the Texas Longhorns offensive line, culminating in a really nice 2024 campaign that saw him get the Lombardi Award and Outland Trophy. He's got really good movement skills and a solid frame that's well suited to play left tackle in the NFL. Really good run blocker, explosive run blocking skills, and does have a little bit of room for improvement in pass protection. However, I think that all of his hand usage, whenever it's all working, whenever he's got patience and he's really focusing on where he's putting his hands, it's all there. He just needs to work on the consistency aspect of it. The Dolphins general manager has also emphasized the necessity of investing in offensive line, and Kelvin Banks Jr. stands out as the premier offensive lineman available at this point in his draft. I think he's a great fit here at number 13. Moving on to number 14, though, we've got the Indianapolis Colts selecting one of my favorite players, breakout player of the 2024 college football season, Mike Green from the University of Marshall, edge rusher. Green is a dynamic player who led the FBS with 17 sacks, 144 total sack yards, and 23 tackles for loss. Really interesting player. He actually is a former wide receiver who converted to defensive line. Interestingly, just a random note, I could not figure out how old Mike Green actually is. I won't say I went back and stalked his Facebook page or anything, but the few sites I clicked on, I couldn't find it anywhere. So we've got the ageless wonder Mike Green here. 22% pass rush win rate, by the way. Incredible. He's a super high energy player and has a repertoire of pass rush moves. He tries a lot of different things, and he's really instinctive with his counters, and you just combine that with his physicality and his high energy, it kind of makes up for the fact that he's a smaller guy who's not exactly the athlete of some of these other players, but really, really fun player here. Moving on to number 15, though, we've got the Atlanta Falcons selecting the linebacker edge hybrid Jalen Walker out of Georgia here. Walker's a really versatile defender who's been utilized in multiple roles within Georgia's defense, and he has expressed a desire to continue to do that and play across various positions. There's been a lot of talk about moving him into edge rusher, and I'm going to be honest, I don't love his linebacker tape, and I think he's really small to play edge rusher here, just almost a little bit too small compared to some of the other guys. I'm not as high on Jalen Walker as other people are. However, I do see the upside. In his deployment, 175 pass rush snaps, 241 in run defense, and 178 in coverage. I mean, if you can get the right defensive mind to mold this guy, he could have incredible upside. The players that he kind of reminds me of, though, Hassan Reddick and Quay Walker, kind of reflect those hybrid styles, and those are good players. Hassan Reddick had a couple of really nice seasons, but I don't necessarily think of those guys as game changers on a down-to-down basis from the most part. But nevertheless, I think he's going to go top 15, if not maybe top 10. I think the Panthers are where his floor or where his ceiling starts in the draft at number 8 there. At pick number 16, though, we got the Arizona Cardinals selecting Josh Simmons from Ohio State. Simmons only played in 6 games this season due to a knee injury. However, in those 6 games he played, he was arguably the best lineman in this class. I had to double-check my math on this because I read that he had a 0.6% pressure rate this season. And considering he only played 6 games there, I went and added it up, and I believe Ohio State played something like 182 pass snaps or pass attempts in those games. I'm not sure if he was out there for the whole time. However, if you add that up, that would be 1 pressure over 6 games, which is absolutely absurd if that's the case. I think that Simmons could be a really, really fun player to pair along with Paris Campbell on Arizona's offensive line, giving Kyler Murray some bookend tackles. And as a player, Simmons has a really powerful punch, good hand usage. He's really good at securing first contact against the edge rushers, and he's got impressive foot speed, natural knee bend. However, we'll see with the injury here if that's able to maintain. But from what he showed on tape, he's got anchor strength that allows him to neutralize pass rushers. He really takes them in and is able to displace that energy back onto them. If he's fully healthy, he is a steal at number 16 here for Arizona. If you are still tuned in here, I just want to say thank you to everyone for watching and listening here. I'm going to go ahead and split up this mock draft into 2 different parts with picks 17 to 32 coming out here soon. As I've just been starting this YouTube channel, the editing software that I use caps the limits on my videos. However, I have been having a really fun time doing these videos, and I'm glad to see that I am getting a little bit of support here. So I will absolutely be upgrading that here soon. And I appreciate everyone's patience on that part because I cannot wait to just release an hour-and-a-half long breakdown video of my top 15 favorite offensive linemen in this draft. But anyway, that's going to go ahead and conclude this first half of the mock draft here. Hope you guys have a great day. Take care.